Hey there, Cosmic Warriors, and welcome back to another video. And if you are new here, my name is Hannah. I am a Western Practical Astrologer. Okay, so in today's video, we are going to be talking all about your Saturn sign. Yes, we're going to be exploring Saturn through all of the signs today. I hope that you do find this video to be helpful. Now, before we do dive in, please make sure to subscribe, hit the like button, click the bell, all that good stuff. And with that being said, let's get into Saturn, the Saturn signs in astrology. Yes, I'm excited to share this information with you. Now, I do want to make you aware, however, about my astrology products. Of course, you can book a reading with me by going to hannahselsewhere.com. And there you can also find my astrology products. And I also want to say thank you so much to my patrons over at Patreon for all of your support, really. If you do wish to gain early access to new videos ad-free, plus daily forecasts and PDF guides, behind the scenes, everything you can, join the Patreon. It would be great to have you. Thank you so much. Okay, so just a little inspiration, right? This video was inspired because over on my podcast, the Cosmic Check-In podcast, I talked about Saturn in astrology. So it's episode 7 over there if you want to listen. So if you really want in-depth information about Saturn, now you know what Saturn's all about and how Saturn shows up within your chart, you can listen to that episode. So we're going to get into the signs today, though. But firstly, we're going to focus on a few things. We're going to make this practical. We're going to explore how you can use Saturn for long-term success. Because Saturn is about being successful. Saturn shows up in our charts as, where do you want to be successful? But this is not about overnight success. This is about time, patience, energy, and of course, maturity. Maturity is a big keyword for Saturn. The thing to keep in mind with this is we experience on average 3 Saturn returns. You experience your first Saturn return around the time that you're 30. So averages, this is, in your 30s, the first Saturn return happens. Then in your 50s, the second one. In your 80s, the third one. So averages there, just to say. And what we then especially experience during our first Saturn return is, oh my goodness, yeah, it is about I'm growing up. I'm an adult. I really am an adult here. But we do continue to grow and we do continue to mature and learn as we go on. But then also, Saturn is so much about setbacks. The setbacks that we face, the hurdles we overcome, the obstacles in our way. Yes, we certainly do climb our mountain of success, and that does require effort. But you see, Saturn is also about the consequences of our actions, whether those consequences be to our benefit or not. So it's important for us to be mindful, right? To be mindful of, okay, hey, you know what? Yes, that thing I did there is going to be a consequence. And I don't say that to instill fear or anything. It's just more about, yes, there are indeed consequences to our actions in life. And you could also look at this through a rather karmic lens. But again, this is not about good or bad. And then I also want to mention that Saturn is so much about purpose. Okay, purpose in life. Why are you here? What is your mission? What is your lifelong goal? Where do you feel in life that you have purpose? And the thing about this is, yes, of course, Saturn can show up as career. But with that, Career is not necessarily your purpose in life. So Saturn is much deeper. Saturn is much deeper. And so what we're going to do today, as we explore Saturn through the signs, is we're going to think about this long-term success. But we're going to break it down and we're going to kind of think about, okay, well, what are some setbacks that you might face based on where Saturn is? And what are some lessons that you come to learn, right? Lessons to do with maturity, lessons to do with your growth. And then what we'll do is we will explore, okay, this is the successful area. But here's the thing I just want to say as well before we move forward is foundation. Saturn is so much about building a solid foundation. It's a very sturdy energy. So we want to think about how we can build a solid foundation so that we can be successful for the long haul. Right. So with that in mind, let's get into your Saturn signs. First up, we have Saturn in Aries. Okay, so I'm just going to adjust the view a little bit. Yes, Saturn in Aries. So Saturn, of course, is going to move into Aries very soon. Well, 2025 for a little dip, and then by 2026, Saturn will be in Aries. So I'm thinking about those of you who are going to be experiencing your first Saturn return, those of you who were born with Saturn and Aries in your chart. Naturally, of course, there are many people who will go through their second or their third Saturn return. Right, so let's explore. Here we notice that you mature by learning lessons to do with the likes of your independence, self-assertion, how you initiate, lessons to do with your identity, your strengths, how you stand up for yourself, and also your energy levels. The thing is that growing up, it might have felt as if, the world was against you, okay? It might have felt like you were blocked when it came to taking action, when it came to initiating. Maybe there were things that you tried to push forward for or push forward with, but you met a lot of resistance, okay? And so what this might have instilled within you is this insecurity, this kind of, I'm not very secure about my path, about my direction, about what I want. You could have had parental figures or people in your life sort of being very pushy, very demanding on you of that's not what you want with your life. This is what you should be doing. This is where you should be headed in this life, okay? This is the degree you should be doing, or this is the job you should be doing. And so basically, this could have resulted in you feeling like I'm not quite sure here. Or maybe it could have resulted in you seeing others, right? Children, even thinking about being in high school, going into university, and thinking, oh, they must be better than me. Maybe feeling quite inferior, maybe fearful. The other people there, they're much stronger. They have more will. They have more power. And so, yeah, it could have been challenging for you in this regard. And basically challenging for you to be aware of, what you wanted. People could have shut you down, and they could have also shut down your anger. You might have internalized this view of, it's wrong to be angry. I can't be angry. No. And furthermore, here's the thing about this stuff. It gets really complicated and really complex. It could have led to you overcompensating, okay? Overcompensating by trying to really control, right? Control the environment, controlling other people around you. Like, oh, no, I need to push. And also being reckless, being quite careless, just kind of jumping into any old thing, actually. So there's where the overcompensation comes into play. But yet, feelings of insecurity here. Maybe feeling weak. And you may also be afraid of being rejected, right? So afraid of being rejected for asserting yourself. But here is the good news for you. Here is your power. Here is your strength. As you move throughout life, you're going to experience these setbacks, right? There are these hardships to do with independence, leadership, asserting yourself. But you see, you learn the power of being yourself. You learn how to assert yourself. Through these setbacks, you come to recognize that actually you are a leader and that you are strong. And the other thing is you possess a great focus. You possess this great focus. You can lead other people, but you can also be a lone wolf within your own right. And you also come to be this highly, highly responsible pioneer, a responsible visionary. So coming up to the first Saturn return for you, as you start to approach your 30s, you indeed do mature. You mature into this lone wolf. You mature into someone who's able to say, actually, this is what I want, and I'm not budging on it. And I'm not going to let other people dictate to me what I should and shouldn't do with my life. You're able to actually courageously and bravely face your fears, to face these fears of leadership, to face your fears of being an initiator and going after what you want. You grow, right, to become someone who is self-sufficient, self-reliant, self-motivating. You can drive yourself forward. You experience so much strength and you come to be really, really confident within yourself. Therefore, Saturn in Aries, your long-term success is about being a leader, whether this be, a leader within a company, within an organization, whether this be you being a coach or self-employed, right? You could very well run your own business. This could be leading within social circles. Maybe this is also where we want to think about the houses, right? The different areas of life. But essentially, your long-term success is so much about you being strong and being confident and knowing what you want and knowing as well how to stand up for yourself. All right, so let's now move on to Saturn in Taurus. Saturn in Taurus, folks. Saturn in Taurus, you mature by learning lessons surrounding things like being reliable, being consistent, lessons to do with your self-worth, lessons to do with your physical security, your comforts, pleasure, sensuality. You see, growing up, you might have felt quite insecure or unsure about how you were provided for. It could have felt like there just wasn't enough, or there could have been some of these uncomfortable feelings about, being supported physically, practically. Maybe you grew up with a certain parental figure or people in your life who were quite controlling or worried about finances. There was this struggle. There were setbacks. There were limitations to do with finances and your physical security. But hey, even if it was that, your family was comfortable, like they did have plenty, it could have still felt like they didn't. Okay, that's the difference. It could have felt like they didn't. There was just always something else to buy or to have or to own, this type of stuff. And perhaps as well, you could have experienced these insecurities to do with your self-worth, or it could have even been where, you grew up with this notion that in order to be worthy, to feel worthy from within, you had to have things, okay? You had to have stuff. You could have as well over-identified with materials. Again, this isn't to say, that in this regard, you were super wealthy when we think of it like this. Of course, there could have been elements of greed or stinginess, stuff like this. But, whatever the financial situation was like, or the physical security situation was like, there was still this feeling of, I feel so attached to this. This stuff is so much about my worthiness. But really, yeah, you could have felt unworthy. And your physical security could have felt unstable. And so it was difficult. It was difficult to relax. It was difficult to experience pleasure. Maybe even people stole, right? They stole from you, they stole from your family. Maybe there was some type of scare there to do with security a bit. Or there could have been a loss, right? Some type of loss that happened. But you see, you could have then started to overcompensate by pushing for material success or being somewhat greedy. And as well, feeling inadequate could have played out. As if you were not good enough. Maybe certain skills or talents or gifts you had, it was like, I'm not good at this. I'm not really sure about this. Maybe you were afraid of being rejected for, valuing yourself, for being good at something. But you see, through these hardships, through the setbacks, through these obstacles to do with Saturn, you actually realize how wealthy and valuable you are. And it's not just in a material way. Of course, it is important for you, I think, to be somewhat cautious and mindful of, what you possess, what you own, having enough, being able to provide. These things matter, yes. But I think a big part of this is more of an inner thing, okay? Feeling valuable from within. See, you do possess great physical discipline, and you grow to become a really responsible, sort of disciplined earner, spender, even possibly you becoming very skilled, very good at a particular skill that you possess, right? A certain talent that you possess. And so as you approach your 30s, you mature into this really dependable figure, into someone who knows your worth, right? You know your worth, and you're not gonna settle for anything less. You're able to steadily face any fears regarding things like material, self-worth, earning a living, all of these things. You grow to really face these things, and you become this adult who is resourceful, who is reliable, who is loyal, who can relax, who can take it easy. Maybe even possessing a really great work ethic, but also being patient, and maybe even creating a little bit of harmony and balance within that too. So essentially, if you have Saturn in Taurus, your long-term success is so much about your self-worth. It's so much about that reliability and feeling secure, feeling like, you know what, yes, I am enough, I have enough, I am comfortable. And again, you could look at this as look to the house, because this reliability could be related to the likes of, earnings, resources, materials, but then you want to think about, okay, where is Saturn based on the houses? You can see which area of life this is playing out within. All right, so let's move on to Saturn in Gemini. Saturn in Gemini. Okay, so if you have Saturn in Gemini, you mature by learning lessons to do with communication, curiosity, your mindset, your intellect, networking, socializing, being versatile, being able to switch things up. See, this is where we notice that growing up, you could have felt limited. You could have felt blocked or insecure about interacting with others. There could have been setbacks there. There could have been possible rejections of I'm not good enough. People don't understand me. People don't really care about the opinion that I have to share here. And that's hard for me, right? There could have been issues with being heard, with being listened to. You could have even grown up with a parental figure or, people in your life who were demanding that you shh, don't talk. Or it was this whole thing of you need to listen to me, okay? You're gonna do the listening, but no one really listened to you. Or maybe it's that you felt that pressure, right? With Saturn, there was that pressure of you need to get good grades, you need to do excellent, you can't make any mistakes, right? The family depends on this. Could have been that stuff. You got to perform. And it could have been that you had trouble, right? There was some trouble learning or speaking, trouble getting your thoughts out there. Maybe there was some type of misunderstanding there because how you learned wasn't really in accordance with other people. And so there could have been some lack there or insecurity there. It's like, I don't speak how they speak, and I just don't really get where they're coming from. And I don't really get this information. It's not really mentally stimulating for me, but I'm like forcing myself to learn it because I feel like I have to, and I need to get the grades, and there's a structure to this. Or it could have been that you were just simply quiet, you were quite shy, this type of stuff. And others could very well talk over you, or they did. They could very well interrupt you quite a bit. But you see, you might then overcompensate it by showing others how capable you are, right? It's like, I can speak, I am articulate, I can teach, I can learn, right? I can. Or you can even overcompensate by saying, yes, these are my opinions and I'm very strong in my opinions. Still, it is likely that you didn't want to appear, this is the big thing, stupid. Getting things wrong, it was a big no. And so you may be afraid of being rejected for saying the wrong thing, saying the stupid thing, asking that question. It's like, oh, that's a stupid question. Right? And then feeling embarrassed. But you see, through such hardships and setbacks, what you come to realize is that, yes, you are intelligent, you are informed, you are educated. And hey, you know what? Maybe the mental stimulation stuff is so much about, okay, that stuff just wasn't for you. And it is about finding a subject that grabs your curiosity and you love to do it. You learn to strengthen your intellect as well. Even if there is a certain subject that's difficult, you're like, nope, I'm going to put in the work. I'm going to learn this. I want to understand this. And so your research skills, your way of communicating, all these things, they improve. Oh my gosh, amazing. And then you become a responsible student, but you also become a responsible teacher. And people do listen. People listen to what you have to say. You grow in your confidence as well, I would say, when it comes to communication. So as you approach your 30s, you mature into this excellent writer, speaker, researcher, what have you, teacher. And you're able to curiously face your fears to do with the likes of language or teaching or networking or communicating with others, being listened to. You grow to become this adult who is sharp, informative, you're bright. You've done your research and people can tell that you have. And you also experience greater humor. You can laugh things off, right? You can be even a bit more adaptable, a bit more flexible. It's like, ha ha ha, whatever. Even if there is a misunderstanding, it's like, bye, just let that go. So essentially, your long-term success is so much about communication. It's so much about how you learn and how you share, how you share information. So what you want to think about is which house is Saturn in, because of course, naturally you're going to look for the Gemini. You're going to look for that Gemini house. So with, Saturn and Aries folks, you're looking for Aries and then the house. And then for Saturn and Taurus folks, you're looking for Taurus and the houses. Here we see Gemini. So you're going to think about, okay, which house is Gemini in? And then there could be more of that structure, more of that foundation that's built, the maturity, the long-term success there within the Gemini house, and then how those matters are related to your intellect. Okay, so moving on to Saturn in Cancer. Saturn in Cancer. You mature by learning lessons to do with the likes of belonging, emotional security, nurturing, support, family, home, giving, giving to others, caregiving especially. So with you growing up, you might have felt rather insecure about, excuse me, I'm just having a little bit of water quickly. You could have felt insecure about the relationship that you had with your family, right? It could have felt like, you didn't really get on with certain family members, or there was some limitations, or there were setbacks, or it could have just felt like there was obstacle after obstacle within your family home, and there just wasn't enough room to kind of really let out emotions. Maybe you felt like you had to keep it together a lot of the time, or other people felt like they had to keep it together. Maybe you even felt like you had to mature really quickly, right? So you had to kind of be this caregiver. You had to support other people within the home, within your family. Yeah. And perhaps your mother, especially, was very hard on you, very hard, very demanding. Like, you need to be perfect, or you need to get this right. It needs to be in this sort of order, this particular order, what have you. And she might have refused to see her own weaknesses. Maybe you didn't feel very secure enough to show your emotions, so that could be a thing. But hey, this could also be that just collectively within the family, there was a lot of pressure. Okay, it doesn't necessarily have to be where it was just the mother. It could be more of a family situation where there was so much pressure to get things together, or there could have been pressure on you to grow up or to move out early. That could have been a thing. But whatever the case, it seems like, with your emotions, they were blocked. Okay, there was some type of blockage, limitation, and others might not have been super nurturing or gentle with you when you were emotional. And so what you might have done is you might have overcompensated by being self-sufficient without asking for help from anyone. No, don't need your help. Don't need your help. I've got this. I'm fine. I'm fine. But like, are you? Interesting. Still, it is likely that you didn't feel supported. Makes sense then, that because you didn't feel supported, then why on earth would anybody else support you? Why would you ask for help whenever nobody supported you? You might even be afraid, right? Afraid for that rejection, right? Afraid that when you do eventually sort of reach out and say, I'm feeling this way, this is what I'm going through, that people are going to reject you for that, or reject you for showing any type of emotion. So what? You keep it together? You keep it together? Mm-hmm. Tight lip. But through such hardships and setbacks, what do you realize? You realize actually that you have a lot of emotion down there. Oh. But you also come to learn how to let that out, how to process it, and that you are highly empathetic. See, you learn so much empathy toward other people, and you become very caring, very nurturing. You even learn that family can provide purpose in life, whatever that looks like to you. This could even be the family that you have in terms of friends or, loved ones that you connect with, right? Whatever family means to you. And you grow to realize that you have great nurturing abilities, and that you are a responsible caregiver. You are a responsible homemaker. So as you approach your 30s, you mature into this secure protector, this secure caregiver. You're able to tenaciously face your fears regarding home. Belonging is a big one. And also mothering other people. So you could very well come to terms with, okay, no, I'm not going to parent other people. I'm not going to mother other people. But also there's an element of, okay, yeah, maybe I do want to be a parent. Okay. You may also grow to become an adult who is sentimental, who is actually very emotional. Maybe you just didn't realize how emotional you were as a child. So yes, you grow to become very emotional, but to stand in your power in that way, right? Right? There's strength in that. And there's strength in your vulnerability. Then you also experience greater support and love. And you can also extend that to others. And you can also healthily kind of say, hey, these are my emotional boundaries too. Okay, this is about maturity with Saturn. It's about maturity. So your long-term success, if you have Saturn in Cancer, is about this stuff. It's about that emotional maturity. It's about belonging. It's about family. It's about home. The care, the support, feeling emotionally secure. This is where you experience long-term success. Then, of course, we want to think about where Cancer is within your chart, which house is it in, okay? And then this is going to show the area of life that this stuff is playing out in. Okay, so let's now move on to, we're going to now move on to Saturn in Leo. All right, Saturn in Leo. If you have Saturn in Leo, you mature by learning lessons to do with confidence, self-expression, your creativity, romance, love, playfulness, your ego, having a healthy ego, because the ego isn't bad. Yes, this is about your light. This is about your glow. This is about shining. Yeah, being able to step into the spotlight, being able to hold space, being able to have actually some attention on you. Because here's the thing, growing up, you could have felt very secure, quite fearful, quite unsure about things like, oh my gosh, people are looking at me, even if you really wanted to perform on stage or you really wanted to do something creative, it's like, I can't stand the thought of other people looking at me. I feel so embarrassed. What if I'm being judged? And also these possible setbacks to do with other children joining in on the fun, right? It could have been this whole situation of, I can see those children are playing over there and I really want to go and join in. I want to say hi, but I'm too afraid. I don't know how to. But here's the thing. You could have been laughed at. You could have been teased. You could have been that child on that stage who was dancing and they were laughing at you. And you were shamed. Maybe you were shamed for the way that you created. Maybe you were shamed for the way that you played an instrument, the way that you joined in. You could have been pushed out, right? Pushed out of the children's circle. No, you can't play with us. You're weird. I don't like you. Okay. I'm possibly ridiculed. Ridiculed for performing. Ridiculed for being creative. As if there's this stern figure looking at your art, judging it, needs to be better, more, And so, yes, you could have grown up with these feelings, right? And possibly as well growing up with a parental figure or someone in your life who didn't let you play. They didn't let you enjoy yourself. It was cut off quick. No fun, no. That's too enjoyable, no. Maybe others didn't like your creations. They didn't give you attention. It just felt like they didn't want to know. So, what does this say? This says that, it was difficult for you to be seen. People don't see me. They don't recognize me. So what do? You might have hid. You could have hid. Or you could have overcompensated by demanding attention. Demanding, look at me. I need this attention now. Or you could have overcompensated by being a show-off. Where you kind of like, oh, well, you did this. Well, I did this, right? This can even get into these kind of competitive behaviors. Still, here's the thing. There are these feelings then of not being lovable, feeling like you weren't loved. Maybe you're afraid of being rejected for expressing your love. Naturally, through these hardships, through these lessons, the maturity, all the stuff to do with Saturn, what you come to realize is that yes, you are indeed lovable. And you are confident. You learn, you see, to love yourself. You also learn to love the inner child, right? That part of you that was shut out, that part of you that didn't get to play and all these things. You come to bring that out when you're older. Oh my goodness, and how much fun you have with it. The world is like this playground for you when you're older. You could be one of those people who goes, to parties and clubs and stuff like that, and you're just like, I don't care how old I am, I'm dancing anyway. I love it. You may also grow to have great stage presence. Oh, and I'm telling you, people will give you that attention. Because it's not about need. It's not about, look, give me. It's more like I'm leaning back and I'm confident in what I'm saying. You like me, you like me. You don't, you don't. It's your choice. I'm not here to force other people to like me or whatever. So yeah, you become someone with great stage presence, and you also become a responsible creator. Responsible creator, and also, hey, a great storyteller. Oh, a great storyteller. And so as you approach your 30s, you mature into an excellent entertainer, excellent performer, and you're able to fiercely face your fears, to do with applause, to do with even spontaneity, because that's the thing with spontaneity. Maybe there's a lack of it. There's a lack of fun. It's like you can't do the fun things, but actually you learn, hey, you know what? I can. I'm just going to wing it. I'm going to do the spontaneous thing because, hey, life is too flippin' short to not do the things that I love. And you also then learn to really put on a show. You grow to become an adult who is also, I would say, warm. Because this is the thing too. Not only is this about other people, seeing you more in this way, and you feel this sense of self-love and fulfillment. And this is more of an inner thing, I just want to say too. But this is also about you seeing others. You can celebrate others. You can see others as, oh my gosh, I recognize you. I think you're doing amazing. And you can be very complimentary towards other people. You can be very generous. And so, yeah, you also come to learn how to embrace these things, and you experience greater joy and liveliness. So when we think about long-term success, this is what we see. The long-term success is about your creativity. It's about your self-expression. It's about your confidence. So then look to where Leo is in your chart and see which house it's in and see which area of life this is playing out in. Radio. Let's move on to Saturn in Virgo. Saturn in Virgo. You mature by learning lessons to do with discernment, organization, scheduling, bookkeeping, like timekeeping, stuff like this. Also, health, stress levels, managing your stress levels, perfectionism, and self-criticism. See, growing up, maybe you didn't feel the most secure about meeting your daily requirements or deadlines, or it could have felt like you were incompetent, like nothing you did was enough, right? It's almost like you would help with something in the house, you would help clean up or manage something, or help out your parents, and it was almost as if it was picked apart. There was some sort of fault within it. There was no thank you either. I need to do things the right way. If I want to be accepted, if I want to be recognized here, I need to do things the right way. So there could have been a lot of high standards and high expectations that were placed upon you, and you could have grown up with a parental figure or just people in your life who were really nitpicky, like just pick. Oh, you got that wrong, you got that wrong. Oh, that was spelled wrong. Fault finding. There was always fault. And you could have internalized that and then started to really see fault in yourself, picking yourself apart, criticizing yourself, feeling like, I haven't done a good enough job. Oh, that could be better. That could be better. That could be more perfect. Yeah. Or maybe even being put down for not doing good enough at school, in your job, at work, at home. You could have got a B on a report, and it was seen as, oh, but you could have got that A. Or you could have got an A, and it was seen as, oh, you could have got that A plus if you'd only worked harder. And so perhaps you internalized these criticisms, possibly creating this very cruel, very punishing, like this punishing inner critic, punishing yourself, putting yourself down, inferior at times, feeling like you weren't good enough. And then this is also where we notice overcompensating, right? Overcompensating by what? Being perfect. Perfect. My hair needs to be perfect. My makeup needs to be perfect. Everything needs to be perfect. Anything that's out of alignment, no. Or possibly looking at it as, I've done all of this work, but because there's one little thing, I'm going to get rid of it. It's all ruined. It's ruined. But then also not letting others see your flaws, which can be quite robotic, really. Because people can think, that there's something that's not quite right there. If you're not letting other people see your flaws, if you're not letting them see that you're human, right? I mean, it's a human quality, it's a human thing to have certain flaws. And I say this, by the way, as someone who has Saturn in the 6th house. And what I also want to say is, it is likely, I suppose we've already mentioned this, but you can pick yourself apart. You can be your own worst enemy. And what I also even just want to further add to this is, I do have a lot of empathy for people who have this placement, because it's like, yes, there is the overcompensating of, others seeing your flaws, but there is that lack within them. There's that, I don't feel good enough. And that's a hard place to be. That is a hard place to be. And then also fearing, the fear of being rejected for being wrong. You can't get that wrong. But as with all other Saturn placements, through these hardships, right, through these setbacks, these limitations in your life, throughout your life, you realize actually that you can turn the self-criticism into self-improvement, healthy self-improvement. You realize just how helpful you are. And you also learn that using critical thinking can be useful. It can be useful when done properly, when done in a way where it's not out of control, where you're picking yourself apart. You see, have great problem-solving skills. And you can see what needs to be polished, what can be tidied up, what can be cleaned up. You can go into detail into things. And then there's that greater understanding. There's that greater depth. And people recognize that. People do come to recognize you. That could be another thing where you felt like you weren't recognized. Always kind of in the background, like, no one sees me. No one's really paying attention to my advice, what I'm doing. But Saturn says you become a responsible preparer, a responsible worker. But even just work aside, you become someone who is able to look after yourself, right? There's that self-recognition. You come to recognize yourself and to look after your health as well. Indeed, to look after your body, your mind, your soul, that whole connection. You come to really look after it and cherish it. So As you approach your 30s, you mature into this dedicated individual and, hey, a dedicated scheduler, a dedicated organizer, all the rest of it. You could very well decide to start your own business, to provide your own services, and you're also able to humbly face your fears regarding the likes of service, cleanliness, record keeping, stuff like this. You grow to become a mindful individual. You experience greater health. And maybe a lot of that is because you learn that, hey, it's okay not to be perfect. How freeing is that, right? You also experience greater daily skills, right? How you attend to your daily activities. There's a greater flow there. So this is where we notice your long-term success, Saturn in Virgo. And what you want to think about is looking to your Virgo house. Okay, so where is Virgo within the chart? Which area of life is this energy playing out in? And this is where we're going to see those schedules and the time management and managing your stress levels and how you're going to improve upon those things really, really well. All right, so we're moving on to Saturn in Libra. Saturn in Libra, you mature by learning lessons to do with partnerships, cooperation, fairness, harmony, business, give and take. See, growing up, you might have felt insecure over issues related to other people. Even committing to others, or meeting others, or meeting someone who is committed. There could have been some setbacks there, limitations there. Perhaps you even pushed potential partners away. Or it's that there was a greater sort of understanding of, I know what I don't want and what my limits are when it comes to relationships. And so I'm not going to settle for anything that's less in this regard. So that is a possibility. Or it could be that you chose more so to start to date or start to get into a relationship later on in life. Naturally, with this one, I just want to mention, to do with relationships here, yes, you could just decide that you want to be single. That's completely fine. But still, you might have found it difficult to get close to someone who could have been a great match for you. Naturally, what I want to say about this, think about this to do with even friendship. Okay. There's still that kind of people getting close. I don't know how I feel about that. And you might have grown up with a parent who was non-committed, who was unreliable. Hey, perhaps your parents divorced, they broke up, or you grew up with a single parent, or you recognized that they weren't very happy. They were quite sad or lonely or low. Or maybe others were unfair or disrespectful. And so because of that unfairness, because of the injustice, I guess, you became guarded. Very guarded. And you might have overcompensated by making it appear as if you didn't need anyone. I don't need friends. I don't need a relationship. I don't need that. I'm independent. I'm good on my own. Still, it is likely that you don't easily let people in, let people close to you. Maybe you really do take your time, and hey, nothing wrong with that. You take your time getting to know people in this regard. But yet, there could also be these fears of sharing the space. So, through these hardships, through these setbacks, what you come to realize is just how committed and cooperative you are. You learn that there is power in teamwork. There is power in sharing, joining forces with another. Again, this could be, relationship-wise, partner-wise. This could be business-wise, friendship-wise, whatever have you, even certain family members of yours, right? Siblings, whatever. Maybe even look to the house that's being activated here when it comes to this stuff. But yes, you learn to value what you have to offer and what others have to offer. And that there can be this healthy give and take. It's not necessarily about everything's 50-50. It's more about, okay, this is where I'm at, this is who I am, and this is the other. But you also learn so much about yourself through your relationships. That's the thing about it too. You learn very valuable lessons about yourself through your partnerships. And you come to learn that you have great negotiation skills, negotiation skills and diplomatic skills, okay, to be diplomatic. You also grow to learn that you are a responsible partner, a very loyal business associate, right? You may take business partnerships and everything else very seriously. There's discipline there. So as you approach your 30s, you mature into this intelligent harmonizer, someone who can create harmony and peace and everything. And you're able to rationally sort of face any fears to do with relationships or getting close or mediation or, seeing all sides even within a situation. You really come to learn how to see all sides. And then that becomes your power. That becomes a big strength, a successful thing that you can even offer the world. You can bring into your partnerships. You grow to become an adult who is fair and sincere. And you experience tact. Oh, you can use tact, and you can be very open as well in your dealings with others. Very good at business, indeed. You can become very good at business. Therefore, this is where we see your long-term success, Libra. Could even be that your long-term success, Saturn and Libra rather, but your long-term success could very well be about you and another. You recognize that, yeah, there is a partnership, right? It could be a business thing. And you think, yes, it is me and them all the way. And I'm so happy. I'm so grateful that we met, that we bonded, and we're where we are now. Again, you want to think about where Libra is, which house it's in, because that is going to show you the area of life that this energy is playing out in, okay? All right, let's now move on to Saturn in Scorpio. All right, Saturn in Scorpio. You mature by learning lessons to do with things like power, intimacy, to do with other people's money, other people's resources, things like control and transformation, these themes regarding Scorpio. See, growing up, you might have felt powerless, as if you had little power or no power, maybe resulting in insecurities toward feeling strong, feeling capable, and driven. Maybe there was a lack of focus there, a lack of direction a bit. Or it could have felt like, it could have been that there was a parental figure in your life or someone in your life who was controlling and very manipulative. And they really tried to come in and say, no, this is what you must do. And this is the path you must live. And yeah, just feeling like they were the ones who were more dominant. Or it could have been that you experienced loss, right? There was some type of loss from an early age. So this could have been the loss of a loved one, the loss of a parent, or it could have been a separation. There could have been some type of divorce. There could have been even a financial loss, the shared resources there, things were lost in that regard. Whatever the case, you may very well obsess about other people's motivations, other people's cruel intentions. Now, don't get me wrong. I also think that you become highly perceptive You're able to really see sort of through other people in a way, or pick up on their hidden intentions, which can be a powerful thing, a beneficial thing, yes. But it can also be here where you become highly suspicious. You don't trust easily. Everything's a threat. There's paranoia. You have to watch your back every turn, like, maybe partners would deny your power on the other hand, okay? Feeling like, the domineering stuff, when we think about with the Saturn in Scorpio and the family stuff there could have been that domineering stuff within your family, amongst your parents, that could transfer into intimate relationships. Maybe you learn, actually, it's through your intimate relationships that there is a lot buried there. There's a lot within the unconscious to explore, to transform through. And you might also have overcompensated by going to extremes. Possibly getting into dangerous situations, really, really reckless situations, right? Life-threatening, yeah. Still, it is likely that you fear developing deep bonds. Those deep emotional bonds where there's vulnerability, there's trust, you may fear those things. You could very well fear things coming out against you, about you. You could be afraid of being rejected for being vulnerable. Other people seeing it as a weakness, or using information, using your secrets to get one up on you. That could be a thing. But here's the thing. You could very well then learn through these hardships and through these setbacks just how resilient you are. That even if, people may know certain things about you, and even if, yeah, sure, okay, that person could use it against you in some way, you're still resilient enough. You're still secure within yourself to go, yeah, I was vulnerable with that person and they're throwing it back in my face. Well, that speaks to their character, to them, not me. And you also learn just how emotional you are, and how that emotion can be so profound and intense, and how it can be brought into certain professions, right? Healing practices where you support other people, perhaps. Because you become such a perceptive individual, like I was saying, right? And so you can really start to read the room and pick up on those nuances. And you learn that you are a powerhouse. You have great self-control. This is about self-mastery with Scorpio. You have great self-control, great self-discipline. Oh my goodness. The self-discipline of someone who has Saturn in Scorpio, incredible. And you are a responsible, intimate partner. Okay, and it is more about those meaningful bonds with a select few, with someone who you do truly trust. And they're not going to use information against you. But you also become a responsible researcher, investigator. Investigation, indeed. The skills of you when it comes to investigating and research, the depths you go to. And so as you approach your 30s, you mature into this perceptive healer, investigator, researcher, and you're able to passionately have your fears, you're able to passionately face your fears, to do with things like loss, extremes, destruction, regeneration, transformation, this stuff. You grow to become an adult who is dynamic, very dynamic. You experience greater intimacy and devotion in this life, okay? So with your long-term success, this is what we're noticing. It is so much about the research that you have done, the depths you have went to, and then we want to think about which house Scorpio is in, because it's going to show you the area of life that this is playing out in, okay? All right, so what we're going to do now is we're going to move on to Saturn in Sagittarius. Okay, Saturn and Sagittarius. If you have this placement, you mature by learning lessons to do with what? Things like religion, your beliefs, optimism, knowledge, expansion, growth, freedom, all these things, travel, all the Sagittarius things. Growing up, you see, you may have felt rather insecure about exploration, about freedom, about being able to see, okay, there's this belief system and there's this other belief system. You could have actually grown up in a rather religious home, okay, or there was some type of belief system or a philosophy that was strongly like imprinted, right? So you could have grown up with a parental figure who was really strict about religion and morality. There could have been dogma, possibly. Now, don't get me wrong, it could have been that they were just very serious and disciplined about their religious beliefs, and that's okay, right? But for many of you, it could have just felt like there was this pressure. It comes back to this pressure, this sternness to do with Saturn, this coldness it could have felt like. Or you could have grown up in an environment where there was, yeah, like I was saying, this dogma, but their beliefs were just so rigid. It was a rigid belief system, very narrow minded. You couldn't think for yourself. And so maybe you were told what was right and what was wrong in this very black and white way, right? You can't think outside of these parameters where there's the Saturnian influence of the limitations. It's very black and white. It can be. So you could have felt forced in this way to believe certain things, but it could also be that you felt forced to get a higher education, to get a particular degree, right? You need to study this. This is the path you need to go down, even though it wasn't for you, right? It wasn't what you wanted. You didn't want those things. So that is a possibility. And then you might have also overcompensated by shoving your own opinions down other people's throats, right? It's your own morals. Like, listen to me, I think this. And then you can also come across as quite dogmatic. Still, or judgmental as well, I would say. You can come across as judgmental. Still, it is likely that you felt inadequate about these things, about freedom. Having that freedom to go explore and roam and see the world. And you may also be afraid of being rejected for growing, for being free, for outgrowing a certain belief system that was so entrenched within the home, right? There could be a lot of fears there. Being rejected from the family, being seen as like a black sheep, for instance. But through these hardships, through these setbacks, you realize, just how freedom loving you are, how expansive you are, how open-minded you are, how you can explore other, subjects and areas, how you can, roam and uplift yourself to greater heights, to be mindful of other things in the world. And you let go of the judgment. You have great vision, great foresight, and you can be a responsible teacher. Of course, still, yes, you could very well still be religious, right? There could still be that continuation of that particular religion, but you're able to hold space and say, hey, this is my religion, these are my beliefs, but I'm also open to hearing other people. That's the difference, isn't it? And you can also become this responsible traveler. Okay, so yeah, you really grow when it comes to roaming, exploring, traveling, opening your mind. And therefore, as you approach your 30s, you mature into this great explorer, this great teacher, this great seeker, but also a principled questioner. You're able to question what is, to question morals, to question why things are the way they are. And you're also able to positively face your fears regarding things like philosophy, your beliefs, your knowledge, your meaning, right? Embracing your higher meaning. You grow to become an adult who is wise beyond your years, who is adventurous, who is seen as someone who knows a lot, right? It's like you understand things. You understand that subject. You understand that topic. And you also have so much wisdom to share. You experience as well, I would say, greater joy and laughter in your life. There is greater optimism and hope that you feel. Now, this is then where we notice the long-term success. And so we want to think about where, your Sagittarius house is and how that shows up. Okay, so which area of life is this energy playing out in? We're going to notice then for you the long-term success to do with knowledge and freedom and expansion. And then we relate that to, and we combine it with rather the house placement where it is. Okay, so let's now move on to Saturn in Capricorn. Right, Saturn in Capricorn, folks, you mature by learning lessons to do with what? Things like discipline, responsibility, integrity, commitment, reliability, ambition. This is Saturn home here. Saturn is home with Capricorn. This is about success. This is about the long term. But what we see here is that growing up, you might have felt insecure about the relationship that you had with, could be the father or a parental figure. But of course, with Saturn, Capricorn energy, it's more the father. With Moon, Cancer energy, it's more the mother. But you can, of course, change these, just depending. But perhaps your father was cold. Your father was strict. Your father was very dedicated, very ambitious. Or there could have been a pressure, right? A pressure to work harder, a pressure to take on greater demands. Maybe because there was a bit of an absence, right? There could have been the absence of the father. There could have been some type of limitations there, the access to your father, that there was a limiting access to your father, and that could have created this flip. Yeah, I need to look after myself. Like I need to work harder. I need to do better. And I need to make sure that I'm self-sufficient. I'm being reliable. Or this could have been a member of authority really placing those expectations on you. And you could feel those standards, right? You can feel the expectations from a teacher, a manager, whoever it was, some type of elder, an older person. And so as a result, you could have really started to form this disciplinarian within your mind, right? This disciplinarian voice in your head, just running 24/7, constantly reminding you of all the things that you need to do, and you have to do it perfectly, and you have to do it on time, and right? Just feeling that. And you could have very well have overcompensated by being a workaholic, right? There's no time for play, no time for enjoyment. Just keep working, keep making the money, keep being successful. Whenever you do succeed at something, right, it's on to the next big mountain. But there's not a lot of that integration. The integration of I did that. I recognize I did that. It was just about, right, on to the next thing. A machine, right? Being like this machine. Still, it is likely that you can feel inadequate about living up to other people's expectations. But you see, these other people's expectations, they're the expectations that you place on yourself. It's really coming from within. And then you could also relate this back to, okay, this is stuff to do with childhood, to do with your upbringing. You may be afraid of being rejected for what? Stepping away, stepping down. Okay, so thinking about any times in your life when you think, this is too much. This pressure, it's too much. I can't bear it anymore. But you still go, no, I'm going to keep doing this. It's like this punishment, this self-punishment. I'm going to push through this. Even though it's so agonizing. Don't get me wrong, there are times in life where it is about, okay, discipline, you get through it, and oh, trust me, I get it. If you have Saturn and Capricorn, you can push through. And I've mad respect for you in this way. But during those times, whenever you know it's time to move on, right? It's time to move on from that job. It's time to move on from that situation. It's time to move on from that relationship. It's not for you anymore. And you're still continuing and going and going and going. This is when I think it's an unhealthy area. But through these hardships, through these setbacks, you realize just how capable you are at being your own authority, right? You're even able to say, I am my own authority. I have a choice. I have a choice in this, right? To be your own parental figure, if you will. I can take control of this situation and I can choose for me what I want to do. It's like you take back your power. You discover that you have the power to confront limiting views that tell you that you're not doing good enough. You can confront them. You can go, well, that's not true, is it? It's not true. So you become really, really mature in this way. So as you approach your 30s, you mature into this rather, yes, this accountable adult. You can take responsibility for your actions. You can hold yourself accountable for things, right? Okay, sure. But it's also then about growing into someone who, you can face your fears to do with success, to do with responsibility, to do with providing. You grow to become an adult who is accomplished, but also grounded. You can integrate those accomplishments. You can recognize yourself, right? That recognition. Maybe that's that recognition that perhaps you were seeking from your parents. It's like, I want to be recognized. I want to be recognized. I want to be recognized. It's like, no, I can recognize myself. And you also experience greater persistence and dedication. So for you, if you have Saturn and Capricorn, this is your long-term success. Your long-term success is so much about that recognition. And little by little, you learn that you actually are a very dedicated, very disciplined person, and you should really recognize that within yourself and be like, yeah, I am successful. And it's, even if there are certain things that you didn't quite finish or you didn't quite complete, it's like, that was still a success. I still learned from that. Okay, even if there are failures, you can still flip it a little bit and go, yep, I failed, but also within itself, it was a success for me because this is what I've learned from it. So we want to think about where Capricorn is within your chart, which house is it in, because it's going to show you then the area of life that this energy is playing out in. Okay, so moving on to one of the last signs, Saturn in Aquarius. Saturn in Aquarius, this is actually my placement, everyone, just saying. I went through my first Saturn return not too long ago because Saturn was in Aquarius from 2020 until 2023. Right, Saturn in Aquarius, folks. You mature by learning lessons to do with things like differentness, your individuality, innovation, rebellion, invention, marching to the beat of your own drum. See, growing up, you struggled to make friends. You struggled to join in. It could have felt like, you were the weird one. You were the weird one, the outcast, the freak. And that's how it could have felt, really. And it could have also resulted in this insecurity, this awkwardness, right? This like, this feels so awkward because I'm not sure how to relate. I'm not sure how to join in because the times that I do, people don't accept me and they think that I'm a weirdo. You could have been a loner. You could have felt really alone around others. Even if you were around a group of people, you could have been in your head or just really alone, like really lonely. No matter how sort of accepting other people were, there was a part of you that felt unusual. There was a part of you that felt different. Maybe certain group members, they did reject you. You were pushed out, right? You were pushed out of the social circle, the tribe, pushed out of the tribe. And what's that? That's death. Maybe people who you thought were your friends, they also pushed you out. People who you thought were loyal, people who you thought cared about you. The minute things got tough, bye. And where did that leave you? Really, really hurt. You could have very well have grown up with a parental figure who was detached, checked out emotionally. They were distant, aloof. There wasn't really much there. It was difficult to connect. And so maybe for you, it's difficult for you to connect in this emotional way with other people. And you could have very well have overcompensated by appearing super independent or rebelling against others, just shocking others for the sake of it. Or the minute that people do get close and they feel like they're getting that, like, that emotional part, then you just do something completely wild, completely out of the ordinary. And there's a break, right? There's a separation, there's a detachment, and you're thinking, why do I find it so hard to relate to other people? But then other people are also maybe thinking, I thought we were friends, or like I thought we were getting somewhere. Interesting. Still, it is likely that you can detach from others easily, especially when you're hurt. Really, when you're hurt, you're like, I'm gone. You don't have me. You don't deserve me. You may also be afraid of being rejected for your individuality, for being different. And maybe you have these sort of, what I was saying with Saturn and Capricorn, that disciplinarian voice. And, the voice that runs 24/7, saying, you need to do this, right? Saturn still rules Aquarius. And so with Saturn Aquarius, it could be that there's that disciplinarian voice within you saying, no, like you're too weird. You're too weird. Like, what are you doing? You can't be yourself here. But hey, through such hardships, through such setbacks, you realize that, you are like-minded. You are inclusive. People do understand you. People do relate to you. And I just want to say here, as someone who has this placement, and this is my own experience, I know I have gotten to the other side of this, I feel. I can see all of this. And coming out of my first Saturn return, I recognize that, yes, there are people in my life who do understand me. And I'm not as alone as I thought I was. But that has required effort on my part. And see, this is the thing too, is you learn the value of forming long-lasting friendships. You learn to have that solid base, that foundation. Loyalty, right? Loyalty, respect, the longevity. This is where you experience that long-term success. It's to do with your friendships, but also community, that community focus, building upon a supportive community, a solid community. You also learn that you're a responsible group member and a responsible innovator. You recognize that, yes, you can be different within the group, but everybody else has their own difference. Everybody else has their own uniqueness. We all have little quirks and eccentricities and things like that. And the beauty about this is you can recognize those things in other people and kind of bring them out a little bit, like elevate them. Hey, it's okay to be weird. Therefore, as you approach your 30s, you mature into an accepting friend, a friend, and team player, group member. You're able to thoughtfully face your fears regarding things like groups, joining in, future goals as well, fears to do with sharing your unique insights, things like this. And you also, I suppose, learn that there's certain people where it's like, I'm not going to bother. Why would I waste my breath sharing my unique perspectives with you? You're not going to listen anyway. So there's maturity in that too, because you just go, they're not going to listen. So I'm sure about me. I'm good in me. They don't accept my weirdness. That's okay, right? And you grow to become an adult who is courteous and genius. Innovation, right? You can innovate within groups, within your communities. You experience greater originality and reason. You can be that one in a certain social group, and you can be that voice of reason. You can listen to other people's perspectives and kind of get a pick up on, okay, what's the bigger picture here? What's the common theme here? How can we relate? How can we join together? So this is where we see your long-term success, Saturn in Aquarius. And naturally what you want to do is you want to locate the house that Aquarius is in your chart and see, which area of life is this playing out in. I know for me, just an example, I've got Aquarius in the 6th house. So my long-term success then is related to, yes, my difference. It's related to my communities, my groups, and the lessons to learn there and the setbacks I have overcome. But to think about how those things play out within work, when it comes to my everyday routines and habits, stuff like that. Okay, so lastly, we have Saturn Saturn in Pisces. Saturn in Pisces, folks, you're going through your Saturn return right now. Haha. Okay, so Saturn entered Pisces 2023. Will be there until 2026. Yes, there will be a little dip into Aries throughout 2025, but anyway, Saturn in Pisces, folks. You mature by learning lessons to do with things like compassion, spirituality, sensitivity, creativity, escapism. Emotional maturity also becomes a big thing too. Establishing healthy emotional boundaries as well. Growing up, you see, you may have struggled to deal with anything difficult or emotionally challenging, right? So, and I say this with sensitivity, but yes, you could have tried to numb the pain. Anything that wasn't, like desirable or comfortable, you could have tried to cut it off because it was just too difficult to feel. And so there could have been this insecurity that was created. This denial, possibly sort of burying your head in the sand, not wanting to see, not wanting to address the difficult thing, the challenging thing, to instead distract yourself, right? Distract yourself with video games, food, perhaps things that are a lot more extreme. Okay, sleep. You might have also grown up with a parental figure who lacked a backbone. They weren't the most they wouldn't really discipline. They perhaps wouldn't set solid boundaries. There would be a lack of boundaries possibly, or it could have been that a parental figure suffered in some way with a mental health issue, or they battled with addiction, and those things are very, very real. And again, this is where I'm saying I want to be really sensitive, like really, really sensitive towards these types of topics. I think even with Pisces, this is what we see. These Pisces topics are very sensitive. So this parent could have been absent, and perhaps you did not learn how to hold yourself accountable for your actions, or it could have been that you felt like others weren't there for you, right? Like you had to be on your own through a lot of it, right? This could have created a lot of loneliness on your part growing up. And you could have also learned to avoid structure, to avoid responsibility, because you weren't shown, right? You weren't shown these things. And you could have also overcompensated by feeling like a victim, where it's like other people need to come in and rescue you and be there for you to support you. So there could have been a lack there. Or it is likely that you would isolate yourself. Isolating yourself in your room, not wanting to let other people in, not wanting to let anybody else in on your feelings. Feelings of loneliness here. Depression could also be a big thing with this. You may be afraid of being rejected for sharing any negative emotion, being shut out for that. Heavy stuff, really heavy stuff. And you can think about where Saturn is right now in the sky. I'm recording this June 2024, so think about that, because this is what we're seeing then. We're seeing these potential themes within the collective right now, which is quite heavy stuff, like I said. But Saturn, it's not all bad. No, it's not necessarily a bad or good thing even, but there is the part of Saturn that says, through such hardships, through such setbacks and limitations, you realize that you are a compassionate person, how loving you are. Also, you can very well establish like a spiritual practice that you do, right? That you attend to, maybe that you try every day, little by little, to set time aside for that meditation, to set time aside to pray. I know for me, right? Saturn is in Pisces right now, and I'm going to try and really start praying more. So think about that for yourself. if you've got Saturn and Pisces. There could be a certain spiritual practice that you do, or you learn to be charitable, selfless, to be giving. You have great sympathy for others. And I think a lot of that sympathy as well comes from your own stuff. It's like you can recognize, do you know what? I felt like that, and I don't want other people to feel like that. So there's a lot of empathy there. And you also grow to become a responsible healer and perhaps very inspirational, a very inspirational figure within other people's lives. Very wise. Therefore, as you approach your 30s, you mature into this healthy boundary setter. You're able to compassionately, compassionately, that's a big word for this. There's softness in this, there's tenderness, there's gentleness. So yes, to compassionately face your fears regarding things like spirituality, dreams, accepting your shadow, accepting those emotions that are a bit more difficult and challenging, you grow to become an adult who is sensitive, who is caring. You may even grow to realize that, what I was saying earlier about with all sharing negative emotions, it's like, no, it's not about them being negative. It's like, this is how I feel. This is how I feel. It's not about good or bad. You come to really learn this stuff. And you experience greater empathy and greater trust, right? Trust. So this is where we notice the long-term success for you. A lot of it is to do with trust, maybe even trusting in the unfolding of the cosmos, the universe, what have you, whatever you believe in. Just having that patience, even that patience that things are going to work out, things are going to improve, right? There's even that hope, there's that inner faith to do with Pisces. So look to where Pisces is within the chart. Think about what house it's in, because it's going to show you the area of life that this Saturn and Pisces maturity is playing out in. All right. So that is everyone. We have went through all of the Saturn signs today. Thank you so much, everyone, for being here. And again, I want to say thank you so much to my patrons over at Patreon for all of your support. I really appreciate you. Thank you so much. And if you would like new videos early, ad-free, daily forecasts, if you're interested in joining, it's a great way to support the channel, really. And by joining the Patreon, you can do so. All the links to everything is down below. And then lastly, I just want to say thank you so much for listening. And if you do wish to book a reading with me, you can go to hannahselsewhere.com. And if you really did enjoy this presentation today, you can always buy me a coffee. The link is just there. And you can also find everything, like I said, in the description box. Thank you all so much for all of your support. Thank you for watching. Again, I really just hope that you find it to be helpful. And I will catch you in the next video. Bye, everyone.